If you've been around the scene for a while, I'm sure you've seen YouTubers and Twitch streamers come and go within this game. It unfortunately has had a bad history of big streamers, YouTubers, and more coming to the game and then promptly quitting shortly after. I have also had plenty of my own viewers come to my streams and my Discord to tell me about how X or Y creator is quitting, or if I know when this creator will return, etc., etc. Now, for the sake of respecting these individuals, I am not going to name anyone. I just want to talk about the reasons why some of these creators have quit, whether that be a public announcement or in DMs that I've had with creators, or some other things that might be lesser known. I know a lot of you watching right now are probably well aware of who has quit and most likely why they quit. I think the topic is important and I want to share my thoughts and maybe predictions of how this will go in the near future. Maybe shed some light on what's happening behind the scenes as well for content creators of the finals, and dive into why this is happening. Let's address the most obvious reason creators quit any game, and that is burnout. Burnout is defined as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. Now, it's more so about what leads us to feel burnt out, but let's be real, doing the same thing all day, every day, can lead to a lot of stress. Other factors can lead to burnout getting worse and being the tipping point to needing a break or to quit. Another big cause for quitting is monetary incentive. If making content is your main income, then you sadly have to go where the money is. There are people who do make a full living doing stuff like exploring dead games, so a lower population isn't necessarily the reason, but your videos simply need to get views. And if there aren't any views, then simply you aren't making money. It's also very challenging to make content that is very entertaining for people who don't play the game. So if the game's population is dying, it's hard to grasp that people's attention. Admittedly, I do subscribe to plenty of YouTubers who play video games I don't even play, but I find their content is so entertaining that I still watch. This is a very challenging task to accomplish and will require the game to have avenues for that form of entertainment. Say, for example, I do like watching Counter-Strike players play at the highest of elo, but I don't really play the game myself and I wouldn't really watch it casually. Regardless of all that, this is a pretty simple concept. If you aren't making enough money, you have to go where the money is. I personally make content on the finals because I am very passionate about the game. Despite the income I make is being very, very low, I am fortunate enough to say that I do have a full-time job outside of content creation. This is simply just a hobby for me. YouTube is purely just a passion project. I believe in Embark and want to support them in whatever way I can. If I was only in this for the money, then you probably wouldn't see the finals content on this channel. So I totally understand the viewpoint of those creators who have quit. Now let's get into some more game-specific reasons. Probably the biggest reason I've heard, and something I struggle with myself, is the lack of competitive support. I'm sure if you go to most FPS game titles and look up the biggest creators of that game, a large majority of them will focus on the content being competitive, whether it be a pro for that game, a very high ranked individual, someone who's known for using a specific hero or playstyle at a very top of the skill bracket, or someone who hosts tournaments. Again, a lot of these are all displays of a competitive environment. It's rare in an FPS game for the top creators to have their content not be dipped into a competitive side of the game. Season 3 was a pretty devastating change of pace for that particular reason. I myself built my channel around educational content that leaned towards teaching players how to improve their skill at the game, examples of how to play the game versus good players, meta discussions, and a lot of other stuffs like weapon stats, but a lot of it was educational. However, this season, with the introduction of terminal attack as the ranked mode, it has been pretty clear that players are not too happy with it, especially my viewer base. They do not seem to care for terminal attack at all. World Tour has little to no skill-based matchmaking that leads to games just feeling a bit too easy, and it also leads to my teammates very often just running really goofy loadouts, running off on our own, and just not taking the game seriously. So when it comes to trying to educate someone, if my content isn't being, a display of serious, try-hard, sweaty kind of content, it's really hard to pinpoint this as a educational point or, here's the meta, here's how you play. because most of the time we're just goofing off and not really using the meta. So for me, making content has been really tricky. I've been leaning more into making montages, clip dumps, because it's kind of hard to educate someone on how to play the game when skill is never pushed to its limits. For an overwhelming amount of creators, this is a shared sentiment that it's hard to make content right now because there is no competitive environment to make the good content. I have taken the challenge of adjusting my content because I love this game and want to keep making content for all of you, but I can't lie and say it's been really easy to adapt. I've been experimenting with stuff and it seems like I'm getting some mixed reviews the odd time. I'd say for the most part, a lot of you guys are pretty overwhelmingly positive towards my content, but a lot of you guys have been expecting more educational stuff. A lot of what I make is pretty experimental, and I'm trying to get a feel for what you guys want to watch. The view and like count for videos is a pretty big indicator to me as to what you want to see on my channel. Speaking of which, feel free to subscribe for more content on the finals. I'm definitely going to be sticking through it thick and thin. Repetition and lack of challenge is a big factor that leads to burnout, as discussed before. And this season, despite the variety of how you can play with, terminal attack, both ranked and unranked, world tour, all the quick play game modes like quick cash and power shift, even the private matches getting a little bit better, the game still feels very repetitive because most of the community has already been quite vocal about how they dislike terminal attack, which leads to most people just playing world tour. And world tour has a similar rank system to season 1, if we can even really call it a rank system. This leads to a very imbalanced games where you have people with 1,000+ hours facing people who have never even touched rank previously, having less than 100 hours and a negative KD. This isn't a fun experience for either party. One team will inevitably roll the other team, and the new players end up barely getting a chance at all. Humans by nature enjoy challenges. Overcoming a challenge can be exciting. However, if you're told your task is to pick up a ball and then drop it, you probably will be able to do that no problem. Sorry to anybody without hands. You won't enjoy or feel engaged at all if you have to repeat a simple task. However, if you're told to pick up a bus with your pinky finger, you will just give up and not care because you know it's not doable. Obviously, these are extremes, but we kind of teeter too close to either or. For a challenge, there needs to be a line that we don't cross where the challenge doesn't end up being too easy or too hard. This will help keep engagement. For some creators, it can become far too repetitive to do the same easy level of challenge over and over. Something that is more fair is much more engaging to both the player and the audience. The state of balance is such a tricky topic to discuss. I've made a video discussing FPS balancing in games before that sums up my thoughts quite well on the topic, but I don't want to repeat myself here, but balancing for a game is always going to be hard. There's an argument to be made for both sides, whether it's casual, regulars, competitive, whatever side you kind of teeter on. But the content creators for the games often lean towards the competitive side. And when the balance for the competitive scene is bad, then creators won't find it enjoyable. Seeing the same builds every game can get quite boring. Another little side note I'd like to add here, Embark, please stop changing recoil patterns. This is actually a huge negative for the casual community. Most comp players spend time in the firing range practicing recoil, memorizing the spray patterns, and often will just master a few weapons at a time. Your casual community do not have this type of time. You are essentially gating weapons for casuals because they don't have the hours in the day to sit in the range and practice these patterns. Recoil pattern changes only negatively affect the casuals, and it does not impact the competitive environment or the players at all. If anything, it's just frustrating everybody. This is a very bad balancing approach. Please make the game more accessible in the future. I want this game to grow and flourish, but a lot of these changes don't really cater to anybody and only hurt the future of this game. Next topic is brand identity. This is something that's a bit harder to see the impact of, but this is a big reason why players quit. If you are known as a person who kills streamers, big high-elo players with weird niche loadouts, or low-tier weapons, then finding clips of these is going to be extremely hard. The viewer base on Twitch is very low. If you're like me and sometimes make educational content, well, right now this is just not a good season because the examples of cash out are often just explained away as, well, the enemies are just bad. If you're a high elo player that prides themselves on making gameplay from being a top 100 player, that's again quite tricky because there's now 2 leaderboards to play in, 3 if you count Orf, and which one really matters to viewers? One leaderboard is more time-based and does not really have anything to do with skill, and the other is more skill-based, but it is arguably the most hated game mode in the finals. So if you want to reach a high rank, you just can't earn it by skill. You gotta earn it with time commitment, which is very unfortunate. For those skill-based content creators who don't have 14 hours a day, you basically just have terminal attack, and the views on that are abysmal. And my final point, that is something I don't think anyone has really talked about before, but I think this is a very important point to discuss, as it does lead to why content creators are leaving. And this is the content creator program that Embark has not really implemented. In the communication between both Embark and us creators, I want to talk about my experience and how a lot of creators have been experiencing very similar stuff. Throughout the betas, it had a creator program. A very small selection of people were in it. I was not lucky enough to make it in. They closed this program with the intention of reintroducing it in the future with a more polished experience. We were told this before Season 2. Throughout Season 1, it was a relatively stale communication that I received. I think some people did have a bit of a better communication. This all changed actually before Season 2. We had an event where creators got to preview the new season, play with each other, meet the devs, and have an awesome conversation about the game, the future, and this was all under NDA with an embargo where we ended up getting to share our experience now. Obviously, some things kept private. I personally loved this experience. I felt a bit rushed by it all because the timing on it was a little bit tight, but overall, it was a pretty smooth experience. And best of all, as us creators, this opened up a direct line of contact with the developers. Another awesome outcome was a Discord where the developers and the creators had a place to communicate together. We could help each other discuss the game in the future, report bugs, but unfortunately that Discord has since been essentially closed. We are all in it, but there are no channels to communicate within, effectively becoming a dead Discord. Early Season 2, we saw stuff like devs banning cheaters live when watching streamers. We could get more immediate support. For example, I reported multiple bugs directly to developers, such as the glitch grenade bug, with video proof just to see that it gets patched within a week. Things felt really good. And then as the season went on, communication just sort of took a dead stop. I got a little bit confused and I started reaching out to some of the other creators, and in a lot of these creator discords that I'm in, it seems everyone had contact with the developers, and then all of a sudden it just stopped at the same time. We're just kind of left in the dark. Patches all of a sudden became smaller and smaller. Season 3 dropped and we had another event, but this time there was no preview. We didn't get to play with devs directly. There wasn't any direct communication. This event was about half as long as Season 2. We had no NDA, no embargo, and overall felt more messy than Season 2. Now, to tie back to the creator program, I was actually invited to participate in a preview of what the creator program might be. I felt honored that the developers would reach out to me and inform me of it, and I gladly accepted. I was told I'd get a follow-up by the weekend. Well, that was back in May. I had followed up a week later just saying again how I was still interested and got no response. In June, I did email about this and I've gotten back saying that they're still interested, they just need a bit of extra time. And now we're closing in on August. I'm not here to make Embark look bad. I just want to share my experience that the creators have been experiencing and my direct story here, because this is a huge reason that behind the scenes, a lot of creators are just giving up. I play multiple games that are under NDA or stuff that isn't even released yet. Being a content creator, we kind of get access to some of these things. I've had developers from some of these games reach out directly to me, even if I have been stale on their game for months, just to talk about the game and get ideas directly from me. I can't help but feel like as a creator, I should gravitate towards games where the developers actively support me and want to communicate with me. But I stay with the finals because I'm passionate about the game and I love this game. I've heard multiple creators say that they're quitting because they just don't know what the future of the finals will be. If a developer came out with a roadmap or a discussion of what we can expect, that could help alleviate a lot of confusion and a lot of stress. But without any communication, it's really difficult to feel confident in the future of this game, especially for a creator who is trying to grow and make a living, so I understand the perspective of those who quit because of this lack of communication. So to sum it up, core issue lies with how the finals has changed. This season was an overwhelmingly different experience from season 1 and 2 for a creator. I'm just going to guess that the finals releases some good updates and goes back to catering to the competitive cash out player base. You will see a large portion of these creators return. The finals is still a great game, despite some of its questionable decisions. The creators love this game, but it's just a difficult environment to grow as a creator.
I think these big changes, like the most recent patch, are the big ticket items to restoring faith in the community, and hopefully will draw more attention from the big creators. I'm assuming a lot of them are probably going to be returning for these kind of updates. Let's hope for a successful future for the finals.
Thank you to all my members. Comment below what reason you love this game and what is the biggest driving force to keep playing. Keep on huffing on that hopium, and I will see you in the finals.
The Kingfish have been rattled. Team wiped.